Hello everybody, this is Chris Bird or MonkeyDude1313, and this is Wishlist Wednesday for Sun and Moon Burning Shadows. Wishlist Wednesday is where we flip through our basically complete master set and show you what we have and what we're still looking for, and maybe some stories along the way. If you missed it, Master Set Monday was the Prismatic Evolutions. Last week's Master Set Monday was Evolving Skies, and we had a Wishlist Wednesday for Neo Genesis, but we did have the Lugia, so don't you worry about that. In this video here, we're going to go over our Charizard binder, or at least the relevant part for this set, because Burning Shadows is known for Charizards, and we're going to show off some of the cool promos that are related to the cards in this set. So without further ado, let us jump right into it. So, as always, start with the grasses. I'm going to pull out this Vileplume because the holo pattern on these Sun Moon era holos is fantastic. So let's try and get the light to show that we have kind of an Aurora Borealis type pattern up there. I don't know if it has an official name, but I actually really love the holo patterns on these Sun and Moon cards. So this has a little bit of nostalgia for me in that front. Also, since the set had a Charizard in it, we bought 3 cases total for a total of 18 booster boxes at a little under $80 per box. So this entire binder was pulled by us, so no worries there. And that means it's as mint as we could get it fresh from a pack. All right, so let us get a move on. Already on the second page, we're starting to get into the fires. I see the Charizard there, but we'll hold off for just a second. We're going to start with this Golisopod GX half art, which is basically a full art in these sets. I love how these look. But part of why I'm pulling this out, aside from it being your boy's best Mon, is I'm also going to be pulling out the promo version of that same Golisopod. So Sun Moon 62 came out of a Pokemon promo pack at the time, and ours is horribly off-centered, which makes it quite a bit of fun. Alrighty. But the moment people have probably been waiting for, the Charizard GX. Since we got 3 cases of this, we had over 13 or 14 of these, and most of them have already been sold or traded to other people who want them. So I think we only have 1 or 2 extras left, but this is the binder copy that we chose to keep. Quite a lovely card. Charizard's my favorite Pokemon, so makes sense to me. Alright, next up, Ho-Oh GX. Another great card. This card worked pretty well with some of the other fire acceleration in the set, although I don't remember if it saw much play at the time or not. I did go to most pre-releases in the Sun Moon era, and I had a great time with it. And overall, I enjoyed it. So, alright. Now we're down here at the Salazzle. Let's pull this guy out real quick. And similar to the Golisopod, the reason I'm pulling out the Salazzle here is because Salazzle also got a promo card. Neat. Sun Moon 63, so it came out at the same time as the Golisopod, but it's just another alternate art version of the same card. Alrighty. Moving right along so we can get to the really cool stuff. We're now into the waters. This Magikarp is fantastic. I really like the art on this. And the Gyarados itself kind of has a doofy head, but overall I like this card as well. Gyarados is definitely a fan favorite Pokemon, and pretty much every time they print it, which is very often, they do it justice. I really also like these knitted artworks. I think they're quite cool. Tapu Fini. The previous set, Guardians Rising, had Tapu Lele and Tapu Koko featured. This one, and Tapu Bulu, but Tapu Fini came out in this set as well. So this is actually one of the first times we got to get the Tapu Fini. And the pre-release we went to, we sat across the table from someone who was really hoping for the full art Guzma. And he went through his packs, and he pulled a full art Tapu Fini instead. And he pronounced it really weird and made a big scene about it, and it was a little awkward, a little bit cringe, but also you could tell he was just enjoying himself, hoping to pull a different card. So this silly memory with random Tapu Fini. Alright, I like that the Raichu here is fighting a Croagunk. I'll just get that a little bit closer so you guys can see. Very cool art. Definitely you should appreciate your bulk and your relatively inexpensive holos more often. The artwork is still incredible. Alright, leaving the electrics and into the psychics. This Seviper may otherwise look unimpressive, but it did get a pre-release promo with much neater artwork in my opinion. but otherwise it's the same card. So the pre-release promos at this time had the set stamp on them, and of course they came in both normal and staff. But only for some of the events during this area did we get the staff promos. For this one specifically, though, we did just get the normal pre-release promos. All right, over here near the end of the Psychic section, Necrozma GX, everyone's, well, some people's favorite black box Pokemon, and it got a promo version as well, which you can show off here. A little bit more decent of a picture in my opinion, but, you know, kind of hard to make Necrozma all that interesting to look at. All right, so let's throw Necrozma back in here and keep it moving into the fightings now. Machamp GX, very cool card. Machamp doesn't seem to get a lot of love, so I really appreciate this. But we will move on fairly quickly over to Cryptominable. I'm pointing at a relatively unexciting non-holo, which probably means that it got a really cool pre-release promo. So this guy's, his hands have always looked weird to me, so I don't really like the Pokemon all that much, but still a neat Pokemon. You know, they got to have some of the more mid Pokemon in order for your favorites to look even better. No hate to Crabominable, though. If he's your favorite, rock on. All right, Marshadow. Marshadow is still picking up steam at this point, and some people still like him. Well, I mean, recently he's been really spiking heavily because of the Pikachus that feature on his cards. But Marshadow GX also got another promo, which I think this promo looks better than the one in the set. He's kicking here rather than punching. Although, I guess punching is more his thing. Most of his attacks and pictures involve him punching rather than kicking stuff. But that's how it goes. Alright, next up, we are into Darks. Dark Pokemon, Darkrai, Alolan Muck. The Alolan Muck getting love in this set was kind of cool to me. I'm not the biggest fan of Alolan Muck, but most people just despise Alolan Muck as a Pokemon, so I like it when they still give him some time in the sun anyway. This Darkrai is an interesting one, because if you take a nice look at this art and remember it for a bit, we could probably perform some kind of magic trick where, whoa, shiny. No, it's not really a magic trick, but same card, just one of them is shiny and one of them is not. This one is not technically a promo. If you look down here, it is actually an alternate art, which is something they were trying in this era, where they just give it the exact same set symbol and set number, but they give it an A instead of it just a plain 88. So we have the set and the alternate art, which you still got from a promo box. They just didn't specifically call it a promo. All right, so this set had fairy Pokemon in it. And what's interesting is that we went from having no fairies, XY came around, we got fairies, and then we lost fairies again at some point. But fairies were still around at this time. This Gardevoir GX was broken, no surprises there. But fairy only lasted for maybe 13, 14 sets or something like that, but this is one of the ones that they were in. I'll come back to that later. Foreshadowing. Noivern, neat card, but the full art is better. And Zygarde. So there's only two Dragon-type Pokemon in this set. The Zygarde, and then, the Noivern, and now the Zygarde. And here is the pre-release promo of the Zygarde. This was the one that I actually pulled out of my specifically pre-release box. The rest of them we either traded for or pulled out of other pre-release boxes after the event. But at this time it was quite cheap to get into the pre-release events, and everyone had a great time where there was no crazy market rush or anything. So getting your hands on these was not all that difficult at the time. Alright, Porygon Z. You guessed it. There is a Porygon Z alternate art. Again, it is not a promo. It is the alternate art, so 105A instead of the standard 105. But it has decently different artwork from the one from the set. But otherwise, same card. Alright, and pretty much the same thing again with Beware. Relatively unassuming, uncommon, or I guess rare non-holo. And there was a pre-release release of this Beware. So, stamp, Beware. Nice. Cool, cool. This one really shows off that Aurora holo. I think that's very neat. Alright, so we're into the trainers. This is where we got Acerola, Guzma, ya boy. We got Lana, Kiawe, and a few others. But we will kind of skip over those for now until we get to the trainers, and we do the first of the grand reveals. Alright, so finishing off the trainers, directly into the full art section. I actually quite like the full arts in these sets. I think the style that they chose to do it in is very neat. What kind of helps it, which one is the best one to show it on? This Machamp, I think. What really helps it out is the silver border. Yeah, the silver border really kind of helps tie it together, rather than kind of making it feel like it's exploding out of the card. Because the posing on these cards looks kind of staticky. You know, there's not a background for it to relate to or react with, and so it's kind of just striking a pose. And I think that striking a pose within a frame makes a lot more sense than not. All right, so I'm not going to pull all of these out so that we can get to some of the bigger stuff here in a second. And so now it's time for the grandest reveal. Back in these Sun Moon sets, most of the cards were full arts. We got the normal full art Pokemon, we got the full art trainers, and then we got rainbow rares, which I don't know if rainbow rares ever really caught on. You'll notice we're missing this card, but this is not the target of Wishlist Wednesday. Do not worry. All right, so full art Pokemon, don't really need to pull all those guys out, but what I will do is say that Charizard got a full art that was never included in the set. This was a promo, Sun Moon 60, as you can see down there. And so this Charizard came in one of those boxes with a jumbo card and a bunch of packs. And so getting this guy was actually a lot easier than pulling him from a pack. So on the one hand, neat. You know, it made it easier to get a really cool Pokemon. But on the other hand, you couldn't get him if you bought a bunch of boxes. You had to go and buy a special product. So wins and pros and cons. Overall, though, very, very neat card. A card I liked so much I got it multiple times. You know, I'm really into Charizard myself. All right, so I may not be pulling out all the full art Pokemon, but I am going to pull out all the full art trainers because the art on these and the textures are just incredible to me. So Acerola here, a fan favorite trainer, at least from this time, and you can see like the flowery clover pattern in the texture behind the card. So if I can get the light to look good on this, you can really start to see all of that texture pop out. Love it. This is yet another one that we had many copies of, and we have gotten rid of most of them by now. All right, this one's my favorite. Most people are into the pretty girls in these Pokemon card sets, but Guzma is one of my favorite characters of all time. You may not be surprised, but I'm also into Junkrat from Overwatch, and Ziggs from League of Legends, and Scout from TF2. So all the crazy, kind of like explosive, punky type male characters I'm into. So Guzma is probably one of my favorite characters in all of Pokemon. He's hugely up there. I've bought fan art of him from Fanime and other conventions quite a few times. But this card is fantastic, and what I loved about this card, aside from it being Guzma, was that this card was playable. Not only did it switch one of your benched with your active, but also one of your opponents. And so you could use this as a double-edged Lysander, or a Pokemon catcher, if you will, or a gust of wind, if you will. You know, there's a lot of ways you can look at this, but retreating your active, and getting to pull an opponent's Pokemon out was often a very powerful move. So Guzma was included in basically every single deck at the time. Kiawe, on the other hand, he got to be put in one very niche deck, and that's about it. So you get to attach 4 fire energies to one of your Pokemon. So if you're running a fire deck, he's fantastic. If you're not running a fire deck, you just don't even bother with him. He's not as universally used as the Guzma was. But when he worked, boy howdy did he work. So I played a bunch of decks. I made the Charizard deck, I made the Ho-Oh deck, I made basically every fire deck I could and jammed as many Kiawes in there as possible, because who doesn't love 4 fire energies on your active Pokemon on your turn 1? There's no reason you can't use this on your turn 1 when you can't attack anyway. So you win the coin flip, you go first, attach 4 energies to your Pokemon that needs 4 energies to attack, and say go. Very, very, very nice. Very fun card to use. I just needed to make sure consistency was there. All right, Plumeria. Back to the pretty girls you guys are all interested in. Very cool card, but you know, it's for me overshadowed by Guzma. You know, hard to not be when I'm kind of fangirling over Guzma over here. But Plumeria is a very cool card, very nice art. Yeah, definitely a new art style for this entire enemy team here. But I love it. All right, everyone's favorite problem child? Question mark? A problem to himself? I don't really know. Sophocles is kind of a minor character in the games. Some might argue that he was a major character, but it's Sophocles. And you can see down here he's got a little like Pokemon, I don't know, it looks like a salt shaker to me, but I think this is supposed to just be like a little Pikachu figure. And then he's got a little drone that he made himself, and his whole story is that he's kind of a tinkerer, engineer-y type. And so he does a surprisingly good job at things you would not expect a small child-looking character to do. So when you run into him in the games, you end up being surprised where you find him and why. But I won't spoil the games if you're ever going to go back and play Sun and Moon. All right. Next up, Wick. Wick. Many wicks. This is another example of the very cool textures on the cards. The background texture for this is very neat. It's kind of one of those textures that it looks like it's going different directions depending on where you have the light reflecting. Quite cool. I don't need to explain why a lot of people really like this card. I think that's clear enough from visuals alone, so I won't go into that. Alright, so now we're done with the trainers. We are into the rainbows. Like I said earlier, people weren't super into the rainbows, but I like the Sun and Moon era rainbows more than the modern ones. I guess modern is Sword Shield rainbows, but I like the Sun and Moon era rainbows for their own reasons. Again, I would probably choose other holo patterns on secret rare cards than this, but you know, it was a fun thing they were trying out, and I was okay with it. So, Glaceopod, very cool. Tapu Bulu, like I was saying earlier in the video. This card was actually quite playable, which was very neat. It made his half art worth quite a bit more than you'd expect, because no one really was going for the rainbows to play the rainbow in the deck, unless you were me. Alright, but this slot here, I have to pull out the Charizard binder, and I would love to spoil the entire thing and just flip through the entire Charizard binder. I'll leave it like this, and then I will go to my Italian Dragonite First Edition bookmark to take us to the page that is relevant. Alright, so we have the Evolving Skies reverse. We have, Evolutions reverse. We have the Evolutions half art. These are for the Evolutions pre-release stamp and staff stamp. Very expensive. Gonna take a while for us to get those. But then we have Evolutions, and then Burning Shadows. So I'm here to pull out the Charizard so that we can put it back into the Burning Shadows binder. But this is a card that Deep Pocket Monster has been ripping over 1,000 packs to get to at this point. Like he said many times, he could have just bought it with all of the money he spent on trying to pull it, but you know, when you're making it for the content, you can afford all that. But this card is just fantastic to me. I am in love with Charizard, not literally, but you know what I mean. It's my favorite Pokemon, so basically every card of him is well worth the investment. And so this guy is the main reason that we bought 3 cases of the set. It wasn't like we bought 1 case and we didn't get it, so we bought another, but we just bought 3 up front, knowing that we cared enough to open that many packs. And the set's called Burning Wallets. Most of the cards in the set are not worth that much, but well worth it. I'm not upset. I love this Charizard. Alright, so let's set that here. And like I was showing you earlier with the full art, we actually got a second of the full art Charizards, the promo ones. So we keep 1 in our promo binder, and we keep 1 in the Charizard binder. So let's take this guy out and put the Charizard in so we can get the glamour shot of the actual finished page with the Charizard included. Alright, next up, Salazzle. Don't need to spend too much time on that one. Those designs in the back are wonderful. Tapu Fini, a card I tried to make work when it was legal, but I could never get it to work really that well. Kind of neat. Necrozma. This time you can actually tell where he starts and stops, unlike his half art cards where he really just blends into the background. Some people were really into the Ultra Beasts. I wasn't huge into them. My favorite was Blacephalon and Xurkitree, and you can probably guess what that says about me. Next up, the final grand reveal. And it may not look like it, but this one here is the card we're missing. So this set actually came with 3 secret rare energies: Fire, Dark, and Fairy. And as far as I know, this was the only time Fairy got a secret rare energy, and so this card is actually crazily expensive, all things considered. Most gold energies go for, you know, between $5 and $30, depending on when they were released. This Fairy energy is about 100 at the moment. So that's the last card we need to finish this set. I guess spoilers, we're not missing any reverses, but that Fairy energy, which I've had on the screen now, is the card we're missing. Alright, Machamp. Full rainbow Machamp. Give it a nice turnaround there. And for some of these Pokemon that are a little bit less popular, I will give them a little bit less time in the sun. Lycanroc had recently got his third form, and so they were throwing Lycanroc all over the place to try and get you to experience how cool he was. Marshadow, nice. Then we have Alolan Muck GX. They later gave this dude a tag team in the later Sun and Moon sets. So that's kind of interesting. 2 Mucks hanging around. Palin. Alright. Darkrai GX. And a fan favorite, Gardevoir GX. Card, like I said before, was very powerful. People really liked playing this card. And this is definitely something you had to account for. Alright. So, the last rainbow, Noivern GX. One of the only 2 dragons in the set. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, so I'm not going to pull out all of these gold cards. I think the gold cards from this era look fantastic, especially with the very aggressive, like shiny marks. I guess I will pull one out to show that off, but these like X's of light here are like glimmers, very cool to me. And then all of them have like the starburst texture around them. So these cards are very cool, and this card specifically was very, very playable, along with Rescue Stretcher and Escape Rope. So your goal was to buy 4 of these off of TCG Player to bling out basically any deck you wanted to play. Alright, I'll pull out Fire, not just because I like the Fire type, but also to show off how the golden energies from this era looked. You got a lot of texture. This entire thing is like a snow, like a TV snow texture back here, and then punctuated by these white X's that don't have any texture on them. They're just more like a raised X rather than being the snow texture. Hopefully that shows it pretty well there. But, so we're missing the fairy type energy of that one, and it goes right here, and then the set would be done. But we are not done with the set yet. We have we have reverses to get to. And I'll go quickly through these. As per usual, you'll notice the exclusion of the half-arts, because there are no reverse versions of the half-arts. So you just kind of squish them all together at the end. Alrighty. Well, this was a fun set for me. I really enjoyed opening all these cards. Oh, there's the Lycanrocs I was talking about. I enjoyed opening all these guys. Pulling the Charizard was super hype. A very, very good feeling at the time. And I would absolutely do it all over again in a heartbeat if I could. Because these were some really fun times. Alright, so that is a master set of Burning Shadows minus the Fairy Energy. Which of the cards from this set is your favorite? How do you feel about the rainbows? Are rainbows your thing? Not really, kind of gaudy, gross, or how do you feel about them? I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts, but also respect you, boy. If you have an idea of what video you'd like to see on Master Set Monday or Wishlist Wednesday of next week, let me know in the comments. I'll have a pinned comment you can respond to. We have so many sets left to show off, and we kind of are picking them either based off of video comments or just based on what we think people would like to see next. So, if you have an idea for a video, post it in the comments below, and I will definitely be reading those.